Welcome to the Behind the Vision podcast. In this episode with Chase, we explore his journey towards becoming a freelancer, his incredible daily coffee consumption, and strategies for obtaining clients without an online presence. Hope you enjoy the show.
We'll see. Maybe this is gonna be my
This is like your launch pad.
my claim to fame right here.
Well, this kind of podcast I felt like is really just a launch of Chase Chapple takeover. You know, kind of taking over the other digital marketer, Chase Chapple. I feel like this is kind of the launch pad episode for that.
That's exactly what I'm on, and this is what I'm super eager for. Because if I see one more Chase Chapple, I don't know what it's called, Chase Chapple Facebook ads or something, or what's his company, Chase Chapple Marketing or Chase Chapple Media. My LLC is Chase Chapple Media, and I feel like his like Chase Chapple Marketing.
Ooh.
But yeah, I think this is really just my opportunity to exploit him and talk about all the bad things that he's doing, because that man is a fraud.
Yeah, what are like some of the bad things he's done? Was he like setting up his ads in like the incorrect manner on like the Facebook side? Just like,
Yeah, actually what he's doing is he requires his clients to give them like a card so he can pay for their ads. And he actually just directs all of their income. Mm-hmm. So what he does, he builds a site redirect, and he has a duplicate site, the exact same site. Mm-hmm. And then he sends all the traffic from Facebook directly to his site, and then just collects all the income.
wow, that's wild. And like income is just flooding in from like, what are people buying?
Well, it's not flooding in because he doesn't actually know how to push ads. He's a fraud.
Oh, okay.
So I'm saying,
Yeah. So like, do you think he hires like people to run the ads?
yeah. He actually. So actually, what happens is people try to go to Chase Chapel Media.
Mm-hmm. They try to work with you.
And he has and he has a little bit of corruption going on where instead of sending them to my site, it actually sends them to his. So like that's why if you've ever tried to go to chasechapelmedia.com, a lot of times it'll say like the URL is broken.
Yeah.
So then naturally you go to Google and you search Chase Chapel Media, and then you land on his site.
Whoa.
So it's really corrupt.
Is that the same thing with like the Instagram account and Facebook? Is he just kind of like shutting you down?
Yeah.
Is he kind of like making you?
So
not
yeah,
post?
he's been corrupting my account because he feels really threatened by me.
Oh.
Understandably so, right?
Yeah.
So I think he has connections to Instagram or he's got his people.
Yeah, but you have
And they're
connections
just
as well,
really,
right?
really fraudulent. Yeah, of course I do. Much more significant connections, but I personally don't like to play the game. So I really like to just like kind of focus in on what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Really just like focus on me, right, King?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, what's kind of like your plan to just like start, get the domain thing fixed, start like taking over.
yeah, that or there are resources out there that you can just you can pay to actually take somebody down.
Are you talking about maybe inquiring with like Devin or Ryan about these resources, or?
Inquiring with them.
I mean, I've heard like Devin and Ryan also provide this kind of like specific service you're looking for, but
yeah, something like that.
okay.
This is where like if we were off the air, I would probably like start going in a little tangent about like something whack.
You'd like share the true story.
I'd share the true story.
Yeah. And if people want the true story, they can find you on social media. But I guess on social media, that domain redirect like brings you to his site, so that's gonna be a little tough.
Yeah, it's it is what it is. But like I said, like I kind of just avoid all the haters and just kind of do my own thing.
Yeah.
I am coming for him though.
Okay.
Maybe that's what I should do. Screw Chris Lindahl. No offense to Chris Lindahl. I don't mean anything like personally against Chris Lindahl, but Austin and I were talking earlier actually about how I'd love to someday make a billboard of Chris Lindahl. So if you're a Minneapolis listener, Chris Lindahl, everybody knows Chris Lindahl, right? He's like the man of billboards. Guaranteed offer. Like if you haven't seen that, you're not a Minnesotan. There's like, he's all over TikTok and stuff too. Like people record planes of him flying a banner that say Chris Lindahl. Superb advertising, if I do say so myself. But as I mentioned to you earlier, Chris Lindahl has like all the billboards, like where he's like this. This says guaranteed offer. And the natural move, the natural progression for my business is to do what denied approval has done and climb up onto the billboard or like on the billboard stand and hoist over top a photo of my face to cover Chris Lindahl's face. And then there it is. I have my own billboard. Before I do that, I should probably have some sort of like website or or tagline.
Would you use Chase Chapple's, the other Chase Chapple photo, or would you use your photo?
Well, so this is where I'm going with that. So
Yeah.
of course I could do that with Chris Lindahl, but like he's not necessarily my direct competitor.
Yeah. He's pretty close though. Real estate, digital marketing, does it
What's
like
the
design?
difference, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference, right? At the end of the day, it all comes down to branding, you know, and it's personal branding, and I do it best, and Chris Lindahl does it second best.
Yeah. You've been putting out a lot of personal branding stuff recently, which I've been really excited about. Like, would you want to like share a little bit about like some of the content and personal branding?
Yeah, if you've ever visited my Instagram, you can see a photo of me from 2011. I think.
Well,
I wasn't even diabetic. Didn't even have my iPod.
Well, so your Instagram's kind of like frozen in pre-Chase diabetic time.
Yeah, and I like to leave it that way.
Nice.
That was the purest form of Chase.
Oh, that's deep. That's good.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, the Instagram definitely hasn't seen much traction, nor has my Facebook. At least on Facebook, you can see the stuff I'm tagged on.
Yeah.
Assuming you're my friend on Facebook.
I feel like you probably like blocked us on there or something though.
I certainly didn't accept your friend request, if that's what you're wondering.
Okay.
Nothing personal.
Yeah.
I just accept everybody's except for yours, but
Okay.
yeah, and then you can visit my LinkedIn. You can see like my the jobs that I was working from like 2016.
And all your other like past, because I mean you're putting out like daily content, which is pretty wild, like the tips and tricks with graphic design.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really kind of like the front figure of what a graphic designer should do in self promotion, and like I'm really leading the industry with ways of promoting myself and my work, and really just like showcasing the things I'm working on. And yeah, I hope anybody who hears this has seen my Instagram before and knows that this isn't.
Yeah, I mean, people probably. I mean, if they're listening, they've probably seen your Instagram before.
Yeah.
Because you post a lot of content. A lot of that gets shared around.
Are you posting enough content? You should be posting like 7 times a day. Yeah. So Gary was actually talking about me when he says like you should be posting 7 times a day. He should just say, yeah, he should just be saying like, you should be posting like as much as Chase. And like not that.
That's what he actually meant.
And not the Chase that we were talking about prior. Like,
you.
I'm Chase number 2. The other guy's Chase number 1.
I thought you're Chase number 1. The other guy's Chase number 2.
Yeah, I mean, most people would assume that, but like sometimes I like to be the underdog. So,
because you know, like there's some bad things happening, and you're kind of just like ready to take over.
I'm always ready.
Yeah,
I'm always ready. Like
you're waiting for your time.
As soon as the fraud is like squandered, like then it's me.
Yeah,
I'm the lone Chase Chapple at that point.
Yeah.
How wild would it be if Chase Chappell, I think is actually probably his name. How
Oh,
wild
Shay
would it be if you
Chappelle.
saw this?
That'd be pretty cool. I'd tell them to remove the domain redirect restriction on your website, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that would at least like 10x your business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I have the capacity to 10x.
I mean, you have the infrastructure built, you have the team, you have the resources, you have the design, software, AI
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you've been
yeah.
working on. I mean, that must be why you go to Spy House.
Yeah.
It's a secret project you just haven't told any of us about. Like, I'm starting to connect the dots, and it's starting to make sense. That I feel like you've been working on some design AI software. That's Spy House.
Dropping soon from your
I talked
local
to
Spy House Northeast.
I talked to Tyler, and he
location.
said you guys were working on something.
We're always cooking
secret.
something up, dude.
Yeah.
I have like kind of a whole secret life that you don't even know about.
Mm-hmm.
And once it catches wind, it's game over for everybody out there.
We are kind of in some way brothers, though. I was looking on Ancestry.com last night, and I see our family trees crossed a little bit while back. And I mean, just looking at the styles of clothes we wore today for the people that are on video, like definitely see some resemblance. So I could feel when you're kind of talking about like the design stuff, like got that connection with your secret project.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Well, a couple things. We do really have a mental telepathy.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when I walked up the stairs this morning, you and I were wearing the same thing.
Yep.
Naturally, I knew you were going to wear it. You knew I was going to wear it. And that makes us feel like brothers. And actually, like, legitimately, we have gotten that people think we're brothers like a number of times.
Yeah. Yeah. People think Devin and I are brothers, though, too, which is
that's concerning.
Kind of not close, but
that's concerning.
Yeah.
You don't want to be.
My dad thought you were.
Your dad thought I was you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the first time that I ever met your father, he confused us.
Nice.
So
maybe we could like sub out one day. Like you go home for the weekend, but I actually go home to your home. You go home to my house.
Yeah, I'd be a little bit nervous that my family would like you better. You're probably a little bit less rowdy than I am.
Nice. My family would like your rowdiness as well. It'd be a good change up. Yeah.
So maybe that's kind of like a fair swap.
Yeah.
Maybe we were just confused at birth.
Could have been.
Maybe I am a Haugen.
Yeah.
And you're a Chapple.
Yeah. I only have one redhead in the family, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's my cousin.
Actually, you have two sisters who are redheads.
Oh, I do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
you're
wild.
You're a Chapple, remember? We talked about this.
That's right. That's right.
What a tangent.
Yeah. Well, kept that going for about 16 minutes. That was like a solid intro, though.
16 minutes of us just talking about like such random stuff.
Yeah, we're just kind of getting into like your background a little bit.
Here we go. Yeah. Breaking out the family tree.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you dove into your family tree at all? Like Ancestry.com or anything?
No, but Adeline has. She and like a number of her family members are like interested in family tree type stuff. Not? It's not that I'm not interested in it. I'm just like, actually, yeah. It's essentially that I'm not super interested in it. It's not that I like wouldn't like to hear about it. It's like it's interesting when Adeline talks about it.
Because you guys are like related, just from
but actually, Adeline. Okay, I have a couple ancestry stories, not about me personally. So relax. And you and I are not blood brothers, as far as I know.
Could be though. Can't definitely rule that out.
But a couple stories. Is this something I should share publicly? It's not really that bad. So Adeline's sister, she was looking into their ancestry and then her husband's as well. And they found out they're like very, very distant cousins.
Oh, geez.
So
it makes it a little weird, but you know, you're distant. just to know.
Yeah, it's not actually weird because like if your 13th cousin, you know, you're separated by like so many family members and so much time that it's not actually weird at all.
Yeah.
But imagine you had like done that and found out something worse. Like imagine you did that and you like found out that your wife is like your
second, like third cousin or something.
very like closer cousin. That would be goofy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not why I'm personally not super interested in my ancestry. I'm really not concerned that I'm an inbred. But that could happen.
Yeah.
I was working a job a couple weeks back and I was talking to a woman on set. She was like the makeup artist. And she said that I think it was either her or her husband. I can't remember exactly. But essentially she said that I think it was her. I think she found out that her dad, who was like in the Navy for an extended period of time, apparently she had a lot more siblings than she knew about. Apparently her dad was a little bit unfaithful or very unfaithful to the point where he had a lot of kids through like an extended period of time when he was, I think, in the Navy and like either abroad or like at training or something. That's
wild.
That's tough.
Yeah. I'd love to look back at my ancestry to see if I'm related to anyone that's like popular in like the old history, basically.
Yeah.
Like if you're related to like, I don't know, someone just in the past.
Yeah,
It'd be really
I feel
cool.
like...
Or just like trying to connect the dots all the way back to like where your family originated kind of, and then like what they were doing. Because sometimes it's interesting because people will almost end up doing the same thing that they're currently doing as like what their like early ancestors were doing that they know of. So like your ancestors could be doing design. Like you could be related to Da Vinci.
Yeah, they were software. They were software engineers.
Yeah.
And, no, I don't think they were. I think my distant relatives would look at me and be like, "This really, like, this is our blood." Like my ancestors were probably like farmers or something, or tradesmen doing stuff that's like super productive. That's right. They are artists.
Yes.
I didn't even think of it like that.
Yeah, they're artists for sure.
And then they look at me and they're like, "Oh, he sits behind his computer all day." Like that's wow. Look how far we've come, guys.
That's funny just to think of like our ancestors, how they're like lived way harder lives than like we are right now, and we're just like in this house just chilling, go down in the basement, hop on our laptops, like do our work.
Yeah, and then I like sit behind my desk and I'm like, my day's ruined because like I had gone to Chick-fil-A that morning and they like didn't serve me the right coffee or something, and I'm like, life sucks. Life sucks. Because I literally just got in my vehicle and like drove to a place that will prepare food for me. And it probably, I mean, I don't know what the food that my ancestors ate tasted like, but it probably didn't have as much seed oils as my food, and like probably didn't taste nearly as good.
Seed oils are okay though, aren't they?
Yeah, so, well, that's the thing. So Austin and I are big seed oil advocates. It's basically all we eat. Every once in a while I see Austin in the morning, and he is...
I'm like sneaking it. I'm kind of like sneaking little tablespoons of like...
Yeah, and I didn't want to have to out you about this, but I see Austin in the morning with like a can of Pam, and he's kind of like... I always thought, at first I thought he was huffing, and he's like, Austin...
I do that at my room at night though, when you guys aren't like watching.
Oh, that's when you're huffing, or that's when you're consuming the... Okay, that's when you're huffing. Yeah, and I was like, Austin, do we need to have an intervention? And he's like, yeah, probably. Like, I got an issue. And I said, like, no, it's really okay. So, so Austin and I went to, like an AA session, not Alcoholics Anonymous, but like
AA oils.
Addicts Anonymous.
Yeah, there were some like big oil individuals there as well.
Yeah, and so we got there, and I was like, Austin, do you want to introduce yourself? He's like, hi. I'm Austin, and I am addicted to seed oils. This whole time I thought he was huffing. It was really just the seed oils. It's the PAM, the canola oil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it got me good.
Wow.
Yeah, the ancestors would not be too happy about that.
Yeah, no, definitely not. So kind of the joke behind this is Austin always gives me a hard time for eating seed oils. I don't know why. You just need to.
I don't really.
I think you're really just looking out for the best for me. You're looking out. You're looking out for me.
Care about you guys.
Yep.
Okay, keep you guys healthy.
Yeah. Every time I try to make like a healthy, hearty breakfast, I'm like, I'll have some eggs. I'll have a piece of toast.
Yeah.
And first thing that happens, I spray the pan with a little bit of canola oil, or I don't even know what it is I use. I think it's canola
preference? Canola oil.
And next thing, immediately you're around the corner.
Yeah, I'm kind of like watching you guys cook.
What is that?
Cooking, please.
I'm like,
I actually take it and I boot it out the back door.
Yeah.
And then I make you sit in the ice tub for like 5 minutes.
Yep.
Just to like help clean it out.
Just to like pay for what I did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They sell good stuff at like Johnson & Johnson. Seed oils or anything, or
any seed oils like J&J.
Yeah, we have to get that backstory.
Yeah, certainly. No seed oils.
No,
but they do sell the vaccine subscription. A really cool concept that I was cooking up when I was an intern there in 2019.
Yeah.
So just before COVID came out, I was actually ahead of the curve. I was just like creating vaccines in advance.
Yeah.
Really wanted to capitalize on that early.
Yeah, that's good. You ended up doing pretty well with that, considering your current life situation.
Yeah, no, certainly. Well, with the vaccine that I created, or well with Johnson & Johnson, or both?
Both.
Yeah. No, I didn't work on the vaccine. I did work at Johnson & Johnson for a short stint in 2019.
Yes. That was out of college, right?
Yeah, so I was actually still in university. So
did you intern there?
Yeah, I did. It's called a co-op. Actually, probably with the exception of my study abroad, it was probably the best thing I did in college. At least, certainly the most beneficial, I would say. I went to school. Okay, I'll take a couple steps back, give you like a short backstory.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the University of Minnesota. Actually, I'll take another step back. I grew up in Rosemount, which is half hour south of here, half hour south of Minneapolis. And I applied to like 13 schools when I was like looking for colleges. And my 13th choice school was the University of Minnesota.
Nice.
I really
awesome.
only applied there because I got an email from them basically saying like, hey, Chase, our application is free today, but it like closes today or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like sitting at my grandma's and I was like bored. And I was like, whatever, I'll just shoot in an application. Mm-hmm. So like I went through, it was a super easy application. Like I don't even think I like wrote a cover letter. Some of the college applications, if I remember correctly, would have you like write something or like do something. I think the use was pretty simple. Like tell us what you've done. What's your GPA? What are your test scores? And
what was your GPA?
I think that was basically it. I had a pretty good GPA in high school. I think I was at like a 3.8 or something. Smart. I was like 40th. I think I was like 40th in my class of like 600.
Let's go.
I had one band credit. That like kind of significantly dropped. No, significantly dropped my GPA. We had a band concert and I was a percussionist. It was my senior year and like I love to goof around in band. Like that was because at Rosemount High School takes band very seriously. Very seriously. And like it's a cool program. I think a lot of the students maybe wouldn't necessarily consider the band people cool, as per most schools probably, but I was a band kid, and we had a band concert, and I was on crash cymbals in the back. I'd always try to like take the hokey doke like triangle jobs or like the crash cymbals or like bass drum, and I would always play obnoxiously. Like my band like hated me because of it. And I was in like a good band. You know, there's like tiers to band based off of how good you are, and I was in a good band, and but I was like the one person who didn't take it seriously. And so we had this one concert, and I remember I played the crash cymbals. So like it's, you know, it was like the kind of song that was like kind of like popping, and then it like would get quiet and like, you know, decrescendo, and then everyone's like playing super quietly, and then it would like kind of like elevate a little bit, and then it would be super quietly. And so I'm on crash cymbals, and I'm supposed to be like that kind of thing. Yeah. And so it's like super quiet. I'm like looking out at all these people watching us. I'm like, this is boring as heck, you know, like I'm gonna spice this up a little bit. I'm like, and I start just like freaking destroying these crash cymbals that I'm holding in my hands. And everyone like in my band director's, you know, he's doing this thing. He's like looking at me. He's like, you know, like cut it out. And I'm like back there, like, yeah. Dude, when I tell you he got so mad.
Was this at a concert?
Yeah, it's at a concert. Yeah. I think he wasn't pleased about it. I remember having like an intervention with him and I think one of the other band directors after that. And I think my grade suffered a little bit because of it. But regardless, all that to say, like I graduated with nice. with a pretty decent GPA.
That was just kind of like the best story out of college or high school.
Man, when I tell you high school is a movie, bro. Was a movie. Yeah, so if you're wondering how exciting my high school experience is, there's a good story to tell the tale. No. Yeah, regardless, high school. So I graduated with like a 3.8. But when I was applying to colleges, it was even higher than that. And like my test scores were good, so I applied to a bunch of schools. I applied to the U only because it was free, and I got an email, and I was bored.
Yeah. Dude, how did you get? Because you applied to like 13, 12 other schools other than U of M, with that good of like grade scores. Like, were you applying to like Yale and Harvard? Like, what's like the top school you applied for college?
I mean, I didn't apply anywhere that good. So I would say like the best school that I applied to in terms of like how prestigious it was probably University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. They have a very strong business school. That was probably like the most prestigious, but I applied to like a bunch of schools, and I basically was applying to places that I wanted to go. Like I didn't super care about how prestigious it was. So I applied to like a bunch of schools in the Carolinas, and I think like one in California, Ohio State, just a bunch of out of state schools because I thought I wanted to go out of state. And I was actually fortunate to have been accepted to all of the schools I applied to. So it wasn't like I didn't get accepted anywhere. Yeah. But then I got my financial aid packages back, and like for me to go to any of these like out of state public schools was going to cost me like $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I think that was like kind of brought me back to reality. Like, holy smokes, like college actually costs money, and you can't just go anywhere you want just because it seems like it would be fun to go there. Right. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, so I applied to the University of Minnesota Carlson School of Management. So the business school at the U. I had no idea what I wanted to study. Like no idea. When I was applying though, it gives you like options. Do you want to apply to College of Liberal Arts? Do you want to apply to College of Science and Engineering? Do you want to apply to, College of whatever? There's a number of schools at the U, right? And I didn't know what I wanted to study. Like, realistically, like, The only reason that I applied to Carlson School of Management was because I like looked up like rankings of the best schools within the University of Minnesota, and like the top one was either Carlson or College of Science and Engineering, and I was like, well, I don't want to be an engineer, like so, or at least I thought I didn't want to be an engineer, so I was like, okay, like business school it is, like. So I applied there, but when I applied, I didn't think I was going to go there, right? And then got all my financial aid packages back, and I was like, okay, it's going to cost me like, I think it ended up being like $10,000 or $11,000, something like that, for me to go to the University of Minnesota after my like financial, or after like my scholarships. I had a couple like academic scholarships and one from my mom's work, and so like it was that, or I pay like $50,000 and I go to a different school, which is like bizarre, you know. And for realistically for like a similar level of education. So I ended up at the U, and I showed up week 1, and it was like I was in business school, and I didn't even know what that meant. I think back to it sometimes about like how little I actually knew. And I feel like adults have like a tainted understanding of what high schoolers know about the work environment. Cause like realistically, when you were 16, 17 years old is probably when you were applying to college, maybe 18. Like, what do you know about what you want to do for the rest of your life?
You don't know anything.
You don't know anything.
Yeah.
And
your actual understanding of what you can do for work is so small, especially if you grow up in like smaller city. Even when you go to even some of the bigger city schools, like your understanding of what's out there is so small.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And like you drive by and you see all these like, you know, if you live in the city or like even where you're from, like you drive past a ton of businesses, but you don't know what any of them do. Or what any individual within that business does. And I remember like when I was in like middle school, they would, or maybe it was high school, I remember it being middle school, they'd give us like a test that you take and it would like tell you what career path you should go down.
Yeah.
And I took that test, and when I was in middle school, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. You know, so like I took that test and it was so like tainted. Because it would basically be like, do you like working with people? And I'm like, yes. And it's like, do you like helping others? I'm like, yes. And it's like, how do you feel about going to the hospital? I'm like, I love it. You know? And it's like, not really.
You love going to the hospital?
Well, the point I'm getting at is like, I would skew my answers to fit what I thought I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Because like, I don't know, that's a reputable job.
Make good money.
You make good money.
Yeah.
So like,
not going to make that money elsewhere. That's what you think at least.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even know that there's other ways to make money. Yeah. So like when I'm in middle school, I'm like sitting there, I'm like, oh yeah, well, of course. Like, I don't know. I want to be a doctor. Like, and then I think I got into like high school, and, I always like thought I was, I don't know. I really had no idea what I wanted to do. Cause then like by the time I got to high school, reality started to set in, and I was like, do I really want to go to school for however long it takes to be a doctor? Like, is a doctor really what I want to be? I'm like, I don't know. So then what are the other options? Like an engineer? Well, I don't even know what an engineer does, but I know they look at numbers or something. Like that's literally what I thought. I took calculus in high school and like fell asleep in class every day. So it's like, maybe this is not for me. Yeah. I don't know. So then like, what am I going to study? Like art history? Like, well, I don't know. I'm not very good at drawing. So then like, what's left? Like, I didn't even know. So I applied to business school, but I didn't even know what business was, and showed up for week 1 welcome week and like started business classes and had no idea what I was doing. And then they're like talking like to the point I literally did not understand what business meant. Like I was like, oh, okay, so business means you sell things. Okay, so like basically that's anybody who doesn't want to be a doctor. And and like doesn't want to be a journalist, just like studies business. So that's what I did. And then even from there, when I got into business school, like, yeah, we took like some gen ed stuff and like it all sucked. I didn't really like any of it, of course. Like well, actually, like we took like gen eds as in like you'd have to take classes that have to do with everything under the sun. Like, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Gen eds, I don't need to explain it.
Yeah. Take those general classes.
Took those general classes, and then like we started our actual business classes like my junior year.
Yeah.
Is when we like got deep into business courses. And then you take like, you know, your accounting and your finance and your supply chain and your marketing. Like that's
The accounting
called
class is
ICAR,
good.
too.
I think the accounting class is definitely valuable. I'd say it's probably like one of the most valuable
Yeah.
business classes.
Yeah, in hindsight.
Yeah.
But when I was there, I took accounting and I just hated it. Like most people did.
Yeah.
You know? And so because of that, I was like, well, I don't want to do accounting, so why do I need to take this? Because I had no intentions. Like, I thought that it was my goal when I was in college. Like, I want to find an internship at a good company so that I can go work for a Fortune 500 and do like marketing.
Is that your goal?
Yeah, that was my goal. And I started marketing because I didn't like accounting, I didn't like finance, and I thought supply chain was boring. So like naturally you know, there's a number of majors in the business school, but it's like the primary ones are those or like MIS. And I mean, I sucked at coding. Like I had to take a couple like coding classes in college, and I took one in high school and didn't love it. So then like naturally I was like, oh, okay, well, marketing, you know, that's what it is. And I think there was a part of me when I was like an undergraduate in college that I wanted to do something creative or like what I thought was creative. So like I thought I wanted to do like design or advertising or like something media related. And then I think that's also a big reason that I decided to like study marketing. But then I started taking like my super heavy marketing courses, and I super quickly realized that it had nothing to do with like what I thought to be creativity meant.
Like, what were the classes like?
Did you take marketing classes in college?
No, I went to college for like a year and a half.
Yeah. Okay. So, it sounds bad. I don't remember much of them, which goes to show how much I learned in college. But a lot of them had to do with like, so we would take like intro to marketing, and it's like, okay, intro to marketing, like what is like, let's build, I don't remember exactly what they're called, but like something like, let's build customer profiles. So like, what does your ideal customer look like? And then you make like lookalike customers and would do stuff like that. And then it's like, well, how do you like sell to those customers? Like it, like super, super theoretical was like the intro to marketing. And then after that, then you start choosing, like marketing classes to take. And so there's like kind of like there'd be like a branding marketing course, but it's not like teaching you like technical skills of like learning how to understand brand. It's like teaching you theory. And so that's the thing that I most disliked about my education at the U was that like with marketing specifically, it's all super theoretical. So it's like in theory, how do you sell this product to somebody? And you do like case studies and you'd read stuff like that, but it was like, I don't know. I always felt like I walked out of college without having any like technical skills, with the exception of maybe some like analytic stuff. So I studied marketing with an emphasis in business analytics, I think, or marketing analytics or something like that. And like, so yeah, I vaguely learned how to use some like softwares like RStudio, or SQL, which not sufficient to the point where I could do anything with them.
Did you learn the Adobe products at all?
No,
No.
not at all.
Wow.
And like, that's something that, me as a marketing major, like that's what I thought I was going to learn. I was so wrong. I was like so wrong and misunderstood. And I think it's because there's like, potentially not enough education for high schoolers, in regard to like teaching high schoolers what a good path for them is. But I certainly, when I was in high school, I certainly thought there was no other option than college. And like I've said before that I regret going to college. That's actually not true. I'm actually very glad I went to college. And I think it's because I went to college that I started to like figure out what I like and what I dislike, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, and like what opportunities actually exist. Because like I said, like when I started college, I didn't really know what I wanted to study, but then I started studying business, and then like I thought I wanted to do corporate marketing, and then I did corporate marketing, and I didn't realize and then I realized that I didn't love corporate marketing, but like it took doing those things to actually understand that I maybe do or do not want to do those things. And so like college for me, looking back on it, like, yeah, I spent a lot of money, for an education that I feel like I learned a lot of theory, right? That's like my biggest gripe about it. But it was also, it took me going to college to get started doing something. It took me going to college to get my first internship. It took my first internship for me to get my second internship. It took my second internship for me to get another job, and it's et cetera, et cetera. And then ultimately, like it took all those things to get me to Johnson & Johnson, which we talked about. What an
like the final boss.
What an insane
Took me to
tangent,
Johnson
though.
& Johnson.
Like, remember when you're like, tell me about Johnson & Johnson? It was like, okay, just let me tell you everything about me ever.
Yeah. It's a good lead way.
Yeah, huge segue. But yeah, it took, and so then I ended up at Johnson & Johnson, and I was an analyst there. I don't pride myself at like how well my work there went. I was extremely, I would say, underperforming. I wasn't necessarily underperforming. I was a fine employee. I could have done a lot more, but I was so deathly uninterested in corporate analytics.
Like, what were you doing? What was like a day like for you? Because you're an intern, right?
Yeah, I was. Okay. So it's kind of like a hybrid because, so it's called I was technically a customer development co-op. So I worked at Johnson & Johnson, and we sold Johnson & Johnson products to Target. I was in the consumer division. Like that's why our office is here, was because we were selling to Target. So corporate J&J is in New Jersey. And then I was in like a sub office in Minneapolis. And essentially what the program was it was like a 6-month thing where you're there long enough where you're not just an intern, because like I did other internships, and at the end of your 3 months as an intern, like you're finally starting to kind of get a groove of things and feel like finally you can actually contribute something to the business, but then you're done. It's like over. And so I did a 6-month program, which I ended up being there longer for like 7 months, or maybe a little north of 7 months. But it's like long enough where you can be there, you can go through the learning curve, those first 3 months of like super intensive learning. Like I think every business basically says it takes the first like 90 days or something, or maybe 99 days for you to like train someone in and make them actually valuable. And then after those 99 days, that's when they can start to like execute. Like that's like an average number for most jobs. And I would say that's the case too with my job at Johnson & Johnson. Like it took a little while for me to like get my feet wet. I was a corporate analyst. I spent a ton of time in like Excel, especially, and then some other tools that I got into. But like, actually, when I started my job there, I hardly knew anything about Excel. It wasn't until the year after I graduated that the University of Minnesota started requiring Carlson students to take an Excel class.
Nice.
But, naturally, when I interviewed for the position, like, yeah, I know Excel. I know everything about it. Like, ask me anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess day to day, I would get in the morning, 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
How many cups of coffee would you be down about that time?
So actually, it's funny you asked that. I actually didn't drink as much coffee when I was at Johnson & Johnson. I was probably like 7 cups a day.
Okay.
It was my first internship. I worked at a software company called Jamf, and I drank so much coffee. It was literally silly. I would drink like 20 cups a day.
Yeah, that's wild.
I basically went through all of college drinking like a ridiculous amount of coffee. This is actually good advice for anybody who overconsumes coffee. The one thing that I can advise you. So when I was at Jamf, I had a manager. His name was Scott. Shout out Scott. He's like the best guy ever. He was the best manager ever. I'm super, super grateful for Scott Reed. But he, so I would drink coffee all day, every day. And near the end of my internship there, he's like, I was like feeling like sluggish. I had been like all summer realistically. I was also working a ton because I had that full-time internship and I was also working a full-time part-time job. So like I was pretty worn out and I still had a social life and it was summer and I was trying to enjoy stuff. But so I was just putting back coffee like crazy. And, near the end of my internship, Scott was like, I told Scott, I was like, dude, I feel tired. Like, I don't know what it is. I'm just like run down and like, I feel like I just need a little break to like catch up. And he's like, oh, like, are you dehydrated? And I was like, no, dude, come on. And he's like, okay, well, you've been working here for 3 months and I've never seen you without a coffee mug in your hand full of coffee. And I was like, okay, dude, like, whatever. And he's like, no, seriously, like for every cup of coffee you drink 2 cups of water, which I now know is like a very normal thing for people to say. But to me, it was like groundbreaking, like 2 cups of water per 1 cup of coffee. No way, man. And so I started doing it and I felt like better instantly. And actually at that point I had an eye twitch that had been ongoing for like a significant amount of time. And I saw an eye doctor shortly after that. And I was like, yeah, I had an eye twitch, but like it went away. And my eye doctor was basically like, oh yeah, like that can be caused by like lack of sleep, which check the box, too much caffeine, and not enough water.
Checked all the boxes.
Checked all the boxes. And so then Scott told me that. I did that. I felt better like within days. Within days, I was drinking a lot more water and a lot less coffee. And all of a sudden, like, then you can start drinking coffee. And like, even to this day, I still drink a decent amount of coffee. Like I drink a good amount. I drink like pre-workout too. But I even so, like the coffee still has an effect on me now. Whereas like back then it felt like it had an opposite effect. Felt like the more coffee I drank, the more tired I was getting. And now it feels like, yeah, I'm not like, I don't drink a cup of coffee and I'm not like buzzing, but I think it does help make me feel like more alert.
Yeah.
Like wake up a little bit.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you that because I thought that was just so interesting.
Yeah.
Never even gotten close to like 20 cups. So that's wild.
Yeah. I don't suggest it.
Yeah. So like going back to when you get into the office, because you say you get into the office at J&J at like 9.
Yeah, around 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. I'm chronically late to everything. Nice. So maybe something more like 9:10. And at 9:10, I was like heading up the elevator, kind of hoping that none of my coworkers are in the elevator. And then I'd like scan my card and I'd like open the door. And I'd like look around and see if the hallway was clear. And then like bolt in and try to like sit down at my cube without anybody noticing that I was 10 minutes late. Yeah. So I'd get in 9 o'clock, 9:10. And there was a lot of meetings that I would be involved in that I didn't contribute anything to. Um, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because at the end of the day, like I was an intern, so I think that was like their way of exposing me to the business and like allowing me to like feel involved, even though I was an intern, I didn't know anything. Like I wasn't really a super key contributor. But then when I wasn't in meetings, I was looking at spreadsheets.
Mm.
So basically it was like my job to basically, like, I guess I had a couple different responsibilities, but it was a lot of like reporting. So reporting like how well, Johnson Johnson products. So like Neosporin, Band-Aids, Zyrtec, there's a ton of them. There's like 200 products. A lot of them are subcategories of Band-Aid, Neosporin. There's a 12 pack of Zyrtec. There's a 24 pack. But there is a lot of products.
Yeah.
Lactate, Pepsid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's like my job to like look and evaluate and see like how well these items were selling in Target. And then like pull analytics based off that. That was like my reporting duty. And then I had other like side quests basically that I'd work on as well. So an example of that, like Walmart was dropping their prices of J&J products in their stores. And so it was kind of like my job to build out a report that would essentially look at how Walmart's sales were comparing to J&J sales. Like, were they selling more enough to make it worth like cutting the margins a little bit? Like, what was happening? And like what was happening to Target sales, this was happening. And so like every day I looked at like numbers. And what that really consisted of, and don't tell anybody who works in my J&J office, but like I dinked around a lot. And without going into it too much, like, yeah, because of it, I probably wasn't like the best employee. And it's not because I didn't like the team. I really liked the team. I actually think that J&J was a really great company to work for. And I'm like super grateful that I had the opportunity to like work for them for as long as I did.
Yeah.
So the way it came to a close was I went out to like interviews out in New Jersey, and we went through like, it was like a weekend of interviews. They put us up in hotels, and it was actually pretty fun. It's a bunch of like young kids there interviewing for jobs. And I went out there and the interviews went pretty well. I knew in the back of my head that I wasn't going to take the job. Like I just knew it wasn't for me. Like I couldn't do it. The job that I was in the running for was like a 3-year extension into like transitioning into like full-time J&J.
Would you have been doing the same work?
Yeah, very similar work. They obviously expect more of you because you're better
full-time.
at what you did at that point. You're full-time and like, but it's the same kind of work. And like for me to, I don't want to say fake it, but like for me to go through the motions for 3 more years in a job that was not for me was like, I wanted to want it. Like I really did, because keep in mind this whole time that I was in college, like that was kind of like what I was working towards. I was working towards working for a large Fortune 500 that had great benefits and like a lot of opportunity. And I thought that's what I wanted. And J&J seemed like a good company to do it for. And it was like, then I got there and I was like, man, maybe not. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. So like after that interview process with them, were you just like, would you just fly home and you just didn't answer any more emails from them? You're like, peace out, guys.
Funny you asked that. This is kind of tough. So I get back and
because I guess the important thing with what you're sharing now is like you worked really hard to create this opportunity for yourself with working for like a Fortune 500 company, getting an internship with them, then you eventually almost getting a job with them, and then the decision you make after that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, I think a couple of things here. The first thing that I think I mentioned briefly earlier, but it's something I really stand behind. Like through all of this, like ultimately, I'm so glad that the opportunity arose. And I think it's super important for me to acknowledge that through everything that we do, I really do think that, like, without sounding cliche and saying like everything happens for a reason, because that almost sounds like spiritual, which, you know, is a totally different thing, although potentially still relevant. Like, I think that at the end of the day, everything that we do helps lead to future decisions, or like everything that we experience helps us learn something about ourselves or about something else that leads to future opportunities. Or like a lot of times it just takes taking that first step to really get there. And for me, that first step was college, and the next step was internship, and the next step after that was marketing degree, and the next step after that was corporate internship, and the next step after that was realizing that I didn't like my corporate internship, and the next step after that was me ultimately turning down what I thought was my dream job. Maybe not my dream job, but like my realistic out of college dream job. So basically what happened, I got back from Johnson & Johnson, and I got back from New Jersey, Johnson & Johnson interviews, and they offered me the position. And dude, this was so tough because so at that time, a lot of my coworkers liked me, at least I think, and based off the way they reacted to me getting a job offer, like I think they liked me. So like they offered me the job, and it was basically my manager's manager. He like called me and he's like, "Hey Jace, like wanted to let you know," or maybe it was the hiring managers. Anyways, somebody like let me know that I got the job, and then I talked to my manager's manager, and he's like, "Hey dude, like congrats, like we're super excited for you." Yada yada. And then everybody in the office, which we didn't have a huge office because it was just a small team working directly with Target, but everybody was like stopping by my cube and like congratulating me and like asking me stuff like, "So like where do you want to work next?" As in like, basically if you take the position with J&J, you have to move, right? Because there's offices all around the United States. So I would have had to move to Los Angeles or like New Jersey, or I think New York, Philadelphia, Arkansas, Walmart headquarters. Like, and so people are asking me like, "Where are you going to go?" Like, you know, whatever. And I'm sitting here and I know in the back of my head, like, I can't take this job. I can't do it. And, you know, people are bringing like bagels and like cake, and like somebody took me out to Manny's Steakhouse to like celebrate. Right.
Dang, yeah.
And like, I didn't want to like keep milking it. Like I really did not want to, but I also didn't know how to tell people that I probably wasn't going to take the job.
Because you're still working there.
Yeah, I was still working there. And so it was like a really awkward time. And nothing against them. They're all lovely people, and it was super nice of them to do that. But like, I just didn't have the heart to tell them. And so I like milked it for so long, and I got so many like free lunches and breakfasts and desserts and like all this stuff. And then eventually I broke the news, and then it was even worse because then I'd been like milking it for like the last few weeks of my internship. And I was like, "Yeah, I get, you know, here's the deal. I actually can't take the job. Like, it's, I have other, I basically told him like I have other opportunities arising," which at the time I kind of did have like discussions of other jobs, but they were all other jobs that I also didn't want to take. I just didn't know what else to do. Because like I was so ingrained in the corporate like culture that I didn't really think there was opportunity for me to do anything else. And yeah, so ultimately I turned down the job, and then I kind of started like letting go of other opportunities that I had been pursuing, other like corporate opportunities. And then I was like, yeah, what am I going to do? I have no idea. I still had 1 semester left of college though.
Okay.
So uh, so I went back to school, and a couple months later, COVID struck and shook the earth.
Yeah, you and Zach both went to the same college, right?
No,
No, you don't?
no. So
Oh, shoot.
Zach went to Bethel.
Okay.
He actually by this point had dropped out of Bethel and was working at Active.
Yeah. Do you feel like that influenced like your direction at all? Like seeing Zach like doing his own thing, and then like, do you feel like that like it's like, oh, Zach's doing his own thing, like
Yeah, so it certainly did, but not for probably the reason that you're expecting.
yeah.
I always thought that like, so Zach and I are very different, in some ways and very similar in others. But I always like thought of Zach as kind of like not the outcast, but when you're in university working for a corporate job, you think of people who are like entrepreneurs or like people who drop out of college as kind of like the outcasts. Like they're the people who like go off and either they're insane and like really talented and are gonna make it, like I thought Zach was, or or they're just lazy and are gonna screw themselves over and are not gonna be able to find opportunities. And I kind of thought of Zach as like, yeah, he's just like, he'll make it, but it's because he's wired different. Like him and I are different. Like he's like got this video thing. He has something he loves doing, and like he's gonna chase after it and he'll crush it. But for me,
You're like pretty focused on your past still. Like you didn't really
so I wasn't really too concerned with what he was doing. But the reason that does become relevant is because so when Zach left the agency and moved, well, he left the agency, and then I think his plans were maybe to like stay in Minneapolis, but he didn't really have any like clientele. So we spent a lot of time together. We like hung out a lot together. So I would like help him with like menial things that he needed help with.
I remember that you're like, you had a video project or whatever I think you're doing, and like Zach helped you edit it.
Well, that was actually at J&J.
Yeah.
That's a funny story. I put together like a J&J, a little video for like an event that was going on. And I did it because I had a camera. I knew how to take photos, but like video certainly wasn't my specialty. But I had all the equipment, so I was like, I'll do it. Like it sounds more exciting than analytics. And I like put this video together. I did not know how to edit it at all. So Zach like helped me edit it. So that happened. But then like even after that, there was a few brands that Zach was working with, and I would basically like PA with him just because like, I don't know, I thought it was interesting and like fun, and it was COVID and I had nothing to do. Right. And then Zach decided he was going to move to Los Angeles. And when he did that, I was still going to school at this time, but I was like, I was basically like, well, he was kind of like, hey dude, would you be interested in like helping me like figure some stuff out in Los Angeles? Cause like I'm moving to Los Angeles, and I think realistically he didn't have much work. He didn't really like have any, he was just like taking a leap and moving to LA because he thought that's where the opportunities were. And so I was like, yeah, dude, like, I don't know, I'll do some prospecting for you. And so I would literally like search on the internet for businesses that I thought that he could potentially work for, or that could potentially benefit from his service. So I would like surf the web. I would go through a crap ton of Instagram pages, and I would just like find a bunch of clients that he could potentially work for. And then I would reach out to them via his DMs. Cause mind you, I don't do anything on my own social media. And I would reach out to them on his DMs or like via an email or something. And I'd be like, hey, here's an example of work. Are you interested in any services? And most people didn't reply. There was a number who did, A lot of them, I think ended up not being great leads. Like I think some of them he ended up doing like mini projects for, and like it's like in a saturated market, in a saturated video market in LA, like everywhere probably has their guy. So the people who don't yet have their guy are probably just people who are like looking for free work, or like maybe they rubbed their last videographer the wrong way, or like they don't have good connections. They have a bad reputation, this, that, or the next. And so I feel like a lot of the traffic that I was like bringing him was, maybe not the best, but regardless, like, it was a way for me to become exposed to like what it meant to be a freelancer, or like what it meant to be an entrepreneur. And so I did stuff like that, and it led to some other opportunities that I was doing. But
Like, what was the first project you did yourself? Because at this point, like, college was finished. You're just like helping Zach out with some stuff.
yeah, I'm trying to think of like the first. I mean, we did like a number of jobs together. Like I would shoot photos on some jobs that he was doing, and stuff like that. But the first job that I did myself, well, I don't know how much I want to go into it. There's
So
one.
your first job.
There's one that I have in mind, but like,
Why? What are you concerned about? Is it like?
well, you can cut it
Not
out if you want.
What do you mean?
It's not like bad, but essentially what had happened is, there was a company who,
Why would I cut it out?
well, it's a
do you
local,
think?
it's a local company.
Oh, just don't say the name.
Yeah, I'm not going to say the name,
Yeah.
but like they're going to know when they hear about it. But it's kind of beside the point.
Okay.
Really, all that it was is they had hired on Zach to do a project, essentially of creating a studio in Denver so that they could live stream, because basically they do live courses, and or they do in-person fitness courses, but then when COVID hit, they were forced to move online.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And so they hired like Zach on to do, to light this like studio in Denver. So now you see like, whatever. And Zach like really didn't know. Zach had a much better knowledge than I did, but like he was in LA at the time and was like, well, I can't really do this. So he hired me on to do it, or I basically just like took it over. And next thing I know, I found myself in Denver, like working on a lighting studio. And realistically, dude, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea. I had purchased, well, they had purchased, but I had like picked out a selection of lights that in hindsight was maybe actually okay. Probably too much light for their space, but I hadn't really seen their space, so I wasn't exactly sure what it was going to need. And also I was doing it for really cheap, so I shouldn't really feel too bad about it. But nonetheless, I found myself in Denver setting up a studio, and I was like, I literally got there and I was like, okay, I have no idea what's going to happen here. And the next thing I knew, I was like in their rafters, like trying to like hang up lights with like some clamps that I had bought.
Jeez, bro.
And like didn't have a ladder. So I'd literally stacked up a bunch of like those fitness boxes, not like hard boxes, like, you know, the ones that kind of like wobble, like they're like kind of soft.
Yeah.
And I'm like 10, like 20, probably, I'm probably on like 10 of these boxes, and they're like wobbling, and I'm like hanging onto the rafters, like, oh, I'm gonna go down here, dude. This is so bad. And like I'm hanging up these lights, and like a bunch of like sheets of diffusion, essentially, and like did this all, and Um, it was really wild because it was like the first thing that I feel like I really owned on my own. Um, and that was kind of a big moment for me because it was like the first time that I was really just like, I'm going to go for it. And like, I'm just going to figure it out. And literally it was to the point where I was there, you know, the first night until like 10 p.m. and they're all like, okay, like you about ready to wrap up? And I was like, oh, you guys get out of here. Like I'll finish it up, and then like I'll be back in the morning. And I'll keep working tomorrow. And they would leave and I stayed there like all night because like, dude, I had stuff to figure out. I'm like on YouTube, like trying to like figure out, or like whatever it may be. I'm like trying to figure out how to make this look good. And I was there for a few days, and like it ended up looking honestly pretty decent. I think what at the end of the day they used a live stream camera that I think was really bad, but I think the lighting itself looked okay, especially for what I was paid to do it, right? And like it was an investment for them certainly, but partially just because like they had a bunch of lights they had to buy. But so that was like the first thing that
Was that project overall like success? Were they happy with it?
yeah, I mean they seemed pretty happy with it.
Nice.
There was one light that was like defective. One of like the switches or something was like broken off on it. And so they had to put that one up themselves later. I don't know if they ever ended up putting it up or not. I know they called me at one point. I told them I would like help them, but like it wasn't going to be there for like 2 weeks and I had to go back to Minneapolis. Right. But yeah, I think it looked pretty good. I think originally the look they were going for was unachievable with artificial light. They were trying to like replicate a scenario that was natural light coming through windows in a very open studio, and their studio was nothing like that. So it didn't look exactly like they had envisioned, but I really don't think that was my fault. I think for them to achieve that would have required probably someone insane to like pull it off. That would have charged them an arm and a leg. And given the circumstances with COVID, like I don't think they could have been in a position where that would have even made sense for them. So I think it went okay. But yeah, that was like the first thing that I kind of did on my own. And the reason that's significant is it was me doing something on my own. B, it was like the first time that I put myself in a scenario where I was like, yeah, I can do this. And then I just had to do it. And like, I had to figure it out. I remember like the night before going to Denver, I was kind of like, oh gosh, like I was like kind of nervous because I wanted it to go well more than anybody. Like I wanted it to be a success more than they wanted it to be a success. And yeah. And so that kind of like gave me the courage to be like, you know, I can figure anything out. Like anything that somebody tasked me with doing, I'll figure it out. And so then I had a bunch of scenarios from that time through all of 2020 and probably into like the first half of 2021, where really it was me finding opportunities through and all like, I don't know, just through anything. Whether it be like people or past people that we had worked with or people that I knew, somebody like had a need for something, and it may or may not have seemed like something that I wanted to be doing, but I didn't have a job, dude. So like I was just trying to figure it out. I was just trying to figure out where my next dollar was going to come from. And so I just started like picking up every single opportunity I could. And I said yes to everything for a very long time. And it was because of that I like, it forced me to keep learning. Cause like, you know, if you say, yes, I will design you a logo, like, oh, you need a logo. You have like a small business. You probably don't have a lot of money, but let's say you have like $500 and you need a logo and like some brand guidelines. Yeah, dude, I can totally help you with that. Like I'm your guy for that. But meanwhile, I went to college and studied analytics. Like, and like I said, like this is always stuff that I was interested in, but I never really got into it. And I think it's because I thought I was going to go with the corporate route. But B, because I didn't really think that being a creative was like a feasible like path. I literally didn't think that artists could make it. I didn't think there was a place for designers. Like I just thought of like designers as like graphic designers specifically as like people who like are just starving artists.
Yeah.
And like I didn't want that I didn't really want that to be me, just because I did want like a lifestyle that I thought was conducive of like not worrying about money every week and like stuff like that. And I think because of that, that's why I steered toward business. That's why I wanted to be a doctor. And then I was like, okay, maybe not a doctor, but business, like there's money in business. Right. And so that was like, that was kind of why I never got into like the whole creative, like industry. It was a combination of that. And then also like, dude, I just thought I wasn't creative. Like I didn't know how to draw, so I wasn't a creative. Like, which is really funny because I think it took me doing some of this stuff to learn like, oh, I actually am creative and like I can call myself a creative. Nobody knows naturally how to build a logo. Like some people maybe are more naturally inclined to be good at sketching. But even them, like they probably didn't, like what's the classic saying? Like Da Vinci didn't like know how to do X, Y, Z. Like not everything just like happens initially. Like it takes the practice to get you somewhere. And just because for example, just because you can't design a cool logo doesn't mean that you can never create or design a cool logo or a practical logo or whatever it may be. It's just you haven't acquired the skills yet to do it. And so I think that's I think that deters a lot of people from pursuing their creative ventures. Like people think like, yeah, I feel like I could be a good creative, but I can't do it. And then nobody gets started. And there are certainly like early adopters. There's certainly like your Zachs in your world who are like, oh dude, I think video is cool. I'm going to pick up a camera and I'm never going to put it down. There's plenty of people like that. But I think there are also a lot of people who like are creatives and they could be super talented, but they just never pick it up and pursue it. And then when you don't get started till later, like I did, like then I had a constant like self like dilemma of I want to be doing this, but I'm not good enough. I'm not as good at it as somebody else. Like, oh, I would love to.
Do you think about that a lot, like your first year into doing your own projects?
Yeah, dude. I mean, that was like a constant struggle. That's honest. Realistically, it's funny. Like, that's probably part of the reason that I never share my work is because it like stemmed from a place of like early vulnerability of like, well, I don't want to share something that I'm not super proud of, or like maybe I was super proud of it, but compared to somebody else who saw it on the internet who's been a professional for 10 years, I'm like, oh, my thing sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I like it, but I'm not proud of it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, you almost have to like, I don't even like to go on like Twitter and LinkedIn because I feel like those two places, they're just people that, I mean, you naturally follow people you're interested in, and these people are also probably at a higher level than you are. So like sometimes it can be good to go on there, see what other people are sharing, what they're doing, but at the same time, sometimes you can be like, oh dang, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
Like I follow people that do like Shopify conversion rate optimization, and they do like their whole business around that. And I'm like, dang, they're like way farther than I am right now.
Yeah, and there's always going to be people like that.
Yeah.
Like, and that's something that you have to realize and understand. Like, it doesn't mean you're a bad creative. It doesn't mean you're bad at CRO. It doesn't mean you're not really well versed in Shopify. But like, there's people who have been doing it for way longer than you.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, there's all, I mean, like, just because, you know, just because Justin Jefferson like set records for the Vikings doesn't mean that KJ Osborne isn't a good wide receiver.
Bringing up the Vikings, dude.
But seriously, like, there's, don't even get me started with the Vikings right now. That's too fresh. We need a few more weeks before we can start talking about those guys again. Even though I just started talking about them. But like, point being, like, realistically, you're probably never going to be the best at something, I guess, until you are, if that becomes you. But so like, that's part of the reason that I never started like sharing my work, just because I'm like self-conscious about it. I don't consider myself a super self-conscious person in general, but like when it comes to my work, like, I don't want to share stuff that I'm not super proud of. And then the other thing that goes along with that is like, I know that I'll do something today and I'll do another project that's similar in like 3 months and it's going to be way better, which is something that's really exciting. Honestly, dude, like I did stuff in that first year. So in that year that I said that I told you I just said yes to everything and found myself in like a lot of weird situations doing weird work that I wasn't realistically qualified to do, like to the point where I would somehow manage to get some project and then, okay, someone hires me to do a logo. Okay, that's freaking great. Sweet. Now what? And then I'm on YouTube. Like, how do I download Adobe Illustrator? Like, what do you mean I just got hired to do a logo and I don't know how to use Illustrator? Yeah. And then you download Illustrator, and then because of this opportunity, like, well, now you're forced to figure out how to make a logo. And like, I put myself in enough situations where I was like forced to learn to do stuff that I learned how to do a lot of stuff. And so like, people today will call me like a Swiss Army knife, which is not necessarily like where I really want to be. Like, I would rather be specialized and really well versed in a small amount of areas as opposed to somewhat good at a lot of stuff. But the nature of like how I picked up my freelance business is like, that's what I did. I literally just took on everything that I could. And I needed that because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know exactly what I was good at. And I didn't know how business worked. So like, I did all that stuff and I learned a ton of stuff, and I'm glad I did in hindsight. But with that, I started to like kind of figure out what I was good at and what I enjoyed doing and where I thought I saw opportunities. And then I pursued those more heavily. And that's kind of where I'm at like right now, is I feel like I'm finally starting to like really like hone into like perfecting certain crafts. I still have my toes in too many pools. I'm still doing a lot of stuff, partially because like no opportunity is really a bad opportunity. Everything is good for one reason or another. Partially because, I want to like have a business that's sustainable.
Yeah, for sure.
But like ultimately at the end of the day, I do want to hone in. I do want to become an expert in smaller areas. I do want to define my own style, and I want to be known as the person with that style. And that's like the direction I'm headed. It's just been a roundabout way of getting there.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool. You're kind of notorious for almost not sharing any of your work, but yet you still have built a client base of like projects you do. Like, how has that journey been for you? Like, almost not being like publicly known in a way, but yet you are known, like people do know you, and you're still like busy with work.
Yeah, I'm certainly kind of off the radar, which I certainly don't suggest doing things the way that I do them. I don't think it's like the most efficient way. Like, it is good to share your work. And actually something that I should certainly start doing. It's just, I've gotten this far without doing it. And the way I've done that, a couple things. I think though that the biggest thing is like, I've surrounded myself with people who have, either have businesses, or know people with businesses. And at the end of the day, like, I could call myself a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I'm just like, I'm a creative. I'm a content creator. I know more about certain things and I know less about certain things, but like at the end of the day, I know how to create a lot of different stuff. So like, I can do design, I can do photo, I can do video, I can do more specific things like email, which is, actually where most of my business comes from, but I can do a lot of different things. And we live in a society where like content is everything. Like, as cliche as it is, at the end of the day, I mean, think about it. Everybody consumes so much media today. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And with this increase of media comes an increase of people who need media for their business to perform well. So I think in that I've positioned myself well in like, okay, like everybody needs something that I can do. Mm-hmm. And not everybody is necessarily good at doing it. Right. But I've surrounded myself with people who have been super good to me, and like offered me a ton of opportunities. And so, with every opportunity that comes up, I just try to like take advantage of it and do the best job possible. Like, over delivering is everything. Especially when you're first starting your business. I mean, it's always important, but especially when you're starting your business, like you can get hired on for a small project, but if you crush it, like they're going to come back to you. Mm-hmm. And I've had a number of clients who I started doing a small project for. I would say actually close to all of my projects have started as like a really small thing. And then, you work hard on it. You give them a really great experience that like, so much so that they're like, it's a no-brainer to not go back to him. Like, he did well. He communicated effectively. He was really pleasant to work for. He was, grateful for the opportunity. And he ultimately wanted what he was providing to me to be like the best that he could do. And like, if you do that, people will come back to you. Right. Yeah, so I think it's a combination of over delivering and of surrounding yourself with people who, are willing to give you opportunities. I'm not saying like, yo, go out and like exploit people for their opportunities, like it does go both ways. So, if somebody gives me an opportunity, like if anything comes my way that they're more well-versed in, like they're the person who I think of and I'm like, yo, here's something that I think you'd be really good at. Like, even if it's something that I can do, if they're going to be better at it, like it's going to go their way. I can have someone approach me, and granted, this is really a hypothetical because that actually hasn't happened. But like, if I had somebody approach me to do like a high level, like, if I had a high level, like branding client approach me, I'd probably be like, yo, that's awesome. And that's a super cool opportunity. But I know somebody who knows branding better than I do, and who I think would really crush it out for you. And then like, I'd hand that off to them. And I know that not necessarily because of that, but I know that what goes around comes around, If I give you opportunities, you're going to give me opportunities and vice versa. And so it's a combination of those things and really just like nurturing your relationships and, being really good to people and because of that, like I feel like I always have stuff coming my way, and it's not constant. Like I have seasons that are a little bit slower. Thankfully, I've built a business where I have enough retainers where I know from month to month, like I'm good. Like I have my clients that I work with every single month, and I don't need to worry about paying the bills. Um, and so, you know, in slow seasons, I'm good. And then there's other seasons that are freaking crazy and are super hectic. And I have a lot going on. And that's exciting too, because then it's like you get to work on a lot of fun stuff and you get to make more money. And
Yeah. Like looking out in the next like 5 years or so, what would you ideally like to be doing with your business?
that's an awesome question. Um, I could see it going one of a couple ways. Um,
Obviously, conquering the Chase Chapel name.
yeah, so that's the first thing. Just become the sole Chase Chapel. Yeah, I think either I could kind of like find a niche and really crush it out in that niche. So one example could be email marketing, something I believe in strongly because it performs well and it's realistically extremely affordable. Um, it's such an easy sell, dude.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be one direction I could go. I could really hone in on that, and maybe that looks like me as a lone pirate, like doing my thing and just like crushing it out with a bunch of people, or maybe it looks like me bringing on other people to help me out with it. Like we're talking 5 years. That is a significant amount of time from now. So I could see doing something like that. But ultimately, I think it could be really cool I would love to potentially launch my own brand and not like my personal brand, like launch a brand, a product, likely a product, although it could be services related. I think that I'm in a position that I've done so much, especially in terms of like content creation that is kind of a natural bridge to me to like start taking on my own venture. And obviously when you have your own brand, like content creation is only a very small piece of the pie. But like I'm always looking forward to tackling new opportunities and like trying out new things, taking on new things, learning as I go. Like that's why I've made it as far as I have, because I was just willing to like be on my toes and like take on anything and figure out how to do it and how to make it work and make it good. And I feel like that's what a lot of owning a business is. And so, yeah, I would love to make something my baby and like invest everything I have in that and like really lean into it. And maybe it goes great. Maybe it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. If you were to do that right now, what do you think it would be?
What would my product be?
Yeah, if you had to launch it today.
I've had a couple ideas in mind. Here's one that I don't know if it exists, and if somebody listens to this and steals it, I'll be relatively bummed, although it likely already exists.
You make it cooler.
Okay, so this isn't cool, but I think it's something that could be practical, and I think it's something that would be useful for a lot of people. So, have you ever pulled a boat behind a trailer?
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to like back in, like 90-degree back a boat?
I just know it's really tough.
Like, yeah, so it is really tough, unless like you're really good at it. So like my dad has a boat. He doesn't have it docked in any lake. He just pulls it around. He's a fisher. So he pulls his boat around to a bunch of different lakes, Mille Lacs and Leech and Red Lake. And he'll go up to Canada, or he'll go fishing locally in Minnetonka. So he's like always going places, and he's a wizard at backing in the trailer. But I've had to do it a handful of times, either with like a boat or with just like a U-Haul trailer. And it's a pain. It's literally a pain in the butt. It's hard to do. A lot of people struggle. Like I struggle with it. I struggle with it. A lot of people struggle far worse than I do, especially like narrow spaces feels impossible. And then in a similar fashion, you know how like cars, when you back up, you turn the wheel and it'll have like a little, most cars nowadays, not all cars, actually, not my car, but most cars have like your LCD screen, right? Mm-hmm. And you look at your LCD screen and you're like, okay, so if I turn the wheel to the right, then the car is going to go like this, right? If I turn the wheel to the left, and like if I turn it a little bit to the right, it's going to go a little bit this way. And if I turn a little right, correct. Mm-hmm. So if I was launching a brand today, I would like to figure out how I can make like an external camera go on the back of a trailer. And then me sitting in the driver's seat, if I turn the wheel, I'm not sure how this would all integrate, / I'm not sure if it's possible, / I'm not sure if it exists. But if I turn the wheel to the right, then I know that the trailer is going to go here. And it's going to show me on a little screen, whether it be connected to your car or whether it be connected to like an app on your phone or whatever it may be. It'll show you where the trailer is going to go based off of like how you're turning the wheel. Mm-hmm. And that way you can like easily back in and out of a trailer. And it could go on boats, or it could go on U-Hauls, or it could go on any kind of trailer. But it's something to me that feels like such a no-brainer. Like technology is so insane today. There are a lot of people who back in a lot of trailers, or there are places like U-Haul or like a million other places that own trailers and rent them out. Like it would be it would be an easy, either a small upcharge, like, oh, don't know how to back in a trailer, like want to see what's behind your trailer, like attach this little camera and pay $4. Okay, that's not a lot.
It might cost a little bit more than that, but
well, I'm saying like for somewhere like U-Haul,
yeah,
like could literally charge it as like an add-on.
Yeah,
like pay $4. A lot of people would be willing to pay $4 if they know they have the comfort of like feeling like they're going to be able to back their trailer and and so that's an idea that I thought of the other day. And I'm like, I don't know how it would like happen. I don't know if it's possible, but that's part of the fun. Part of the fun would be like just chatting with somebody and chatting with a bunch of people and figuring out how to make it work, figure out whether or not it's possible. And then if it is, then it opens up a whole can of worms. So that would be like a stretch project. I mean, it's not something like you're not creating t-shirts or something that like is not easy to do, but like at the end of the day, there's probably a lot of resources on how to do it. Right.
For sure. And it's already been done in some form, but it's just not for like trailers.
Yeah. And maybe it is for trailers. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a good idea though.
But yeah, that's just like one thing. And I have, like I said, I have a bunch of ideas, that I think about all the time.
Yeah. So you've had some near-death experiences. Feel free to share one of them if you want. But like, what has that taught you about life?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I've had a few. I don't really consider them near-death experiences, honestly.
Devin's like, ask Chase about his near-death experiences.
Yeah, I feel like Devin's maybe stretching that out a little bit. But like, yeah, I have had times. I had a traumatic brain injury that like realistically could have been a lot worse than it ended up being. Basically, I was going down a hill when I was in high school on a skateboard, and they had dug down in the street like a little thing because they were putting in a speed bump at the bottom of the hill. And this is a hill I had gone down a million times that summer, and I had gone down it with the speed bump before they repaved, and I had gone down it without the speed bump after they had repaved. But I had never gone down it with a huge, like, couple inch deep cutout in the street, because that's what they do when they put in a speed bump. They cut down a little bit and then they like lay the speed bump in there so that it doesn't like slide or move. I went down the hill and I was like cruising, and I don't remember this because I had traumatic brain injury moments after this happened, but I hit it and I flew and I like slammed my head. And I had bleeding on my brain in a number of areas, and a lot of, shattered part of my skull, and like had a lot of stuff going on with the tendons in my neck, and it was a nightmare. I spent a decent amount of time in the hospital, and basically it could have been a lot worse, and that's something that like even my doctor said, like, dude, you got really lucky because you weren't wearing a helmet and you destroyed your head. So that's kind of the abbreviated story. I've had that. I've had a couple other
The island one.
fun
That's always
stories.
good.
Yeah, then island. Without going too deep into it for sake of time, I was in Australia. We went from Sydney to Brisbane. Took a like 6-hour bus from Brisbane up to a place called Hervey Bay. Then we took a ferry from Hervey Bay to Fraser Island, which is this island that's like completely sand. There's essentially like no or at least very few establishments on this island. There's certainly no like pharmacies, which is an issue because I'm a type 1 diabetic and I forgot my insulin. So that was realistically, I that's a story I won't even tell my mother, because I don't want to like give her a heart attack. She already worries about me enough. I don't need to give her one more thing to worry about. But yeah, I forgot my insulin, and figuring out how to stay at a manageable blood sugar level for the duration of a multi-day island trip without insulin, which, like, for those of you who don't know, essentially, as a diabetic, you have to, whenever you eat carbs, your blood sugar rises. Okay, so then you take insulin to bring it back down to a normal level. Well, even if you don't eat carbs, your blood sugar naturally rises. But there are things that many diabetics, myself included, and I say many diabetics because I think it varies person to person, but there's like certain things you can do to keep your blood sugar regulated. One of those being drinking a lot of water, doing a lot of like endurance exercise, and some other stuff as well. But so I had to go days without eating any carbs, and I was drinking an asinine amount of water, and I was walking the beach with a dingo-ridden beach, which is basically just like medium-sized dogs that apparently are not scared of humans and will attack humans. And for that reason, like, you're not supposed to walk the beach at night, and you're supposed to carry a tour. Well, I had to walk like dingo infested beaches with a huge backpack. It was a nightmare of a trip. So I've had a couple experiences. Again, I don't necessarily call them near death, but
They're getting there.
but Devin certainly thinks like it probably also has something to do with, like, I gave a pretty like mellow description of each of those stories. When I told Devin those, I was probably a little bit more animated and also like just more I don't know if I would say like realistic, but like there was some legitimate concerns at some points. But regardless, I've had some stuff happen. How has it changed my outlook about life? Good question. I honestly don't think, well, oh man, I don't know. I think there are like, I have a few different outlooks on them. The first being is like, as a Christian, like sometimes I think there's like God moments where I'm like, man, I don't know how I got through this. Like that was a blessing. Like, so there's that. I can't necessarily take the approach of like, I'm not going to tell you like, man, life could end at any point. So like make the most of every day. Cause that's realistically like not really how I think about those things. But what I will say about those experiences are like, man, life is short. So like take advantage of every opportunity that you have. And like you can get through just about anything. And like I think it's realizing at moments like that when like, I mean, not having insulin as a diabetic for a number of days is legitimately concern for your life. So in turn, like small things like getting rejected by a client or like doing a project that doesn't go super well. Like, dude, sack up, you know, like there are way worse things that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I think it just takes like a little bit of courage to just like step out, put yourself out of your comfort zone, try some stuff. You can realistically get through like anything. So like just get after it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that applies for everything. Like it could apply to your business, or maybe it applies to like a dream that you have. Like maybe you want to go skydiving. Maybe you want to get like skydive certified. Maybe you want to learn how to do a backflip, but all these things you're like, oh, I don't know, I could get hurt. Like, do I really want to try training for a marathon? Like, what if it doesn't go well? What if I hate it? And not a great example because I've never trained for a marathon. I actually never really intend on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, if that's something you want to do, like go for it, send it. You can basically make it through anything that you like tell yourself you can make it through. Like you got to have that David Goggins energy, you know, like, what is his saying? He's got a few sayings. Stay hard.
Yeah. Stay hard.
Stay hard. I don't know.
Who's gonna row the boats?
Who's going to row the boats? Yeah. But like,
Yeah, just get after it. Get after the life you want, and anything's really possible if you're just willing to like, similar to what you did. You just accepted whatever challenges, projects came your way, and you just figured it out.
yeah, dude. Go for it. Like we realistically have nothing to lose. And like, yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, to wrap up the podcast, I know you're probably late to Spy House. You know, they're probably wondering where you're at today.
Yeah. If you're wondering where you can find me, you can follow me on Instagram, although I'll never accept your requests, or you can find me at Spy House in Northeast because I'm there all too often. Yeah.
What would be your last piece of advice to your younger self?
I think I would say just enjoy the journey. You know, like I said, through everything I've done, not everything has been like perfect. Not everything has gone as planned. Like, yeah, I went to university for 4 years to pursue a job that I then found out that I don't think was for me. But everything is like a necessary next step, and everything leads to the next. So just like soak it up, enjoy what you're doing as you're doing it, make the most of it. And then, you know, just always be forward facing. Don't get knocked down too hard. Like when you do get knocked down, like dust off, you know, shake off the dirt, shake the dust, and, you know, smile and
Chase got a whole list for his younger self.
smile and carry on.
Follow these rules.
Yeah.
Sweet, dude. All right, bro. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me ramble.
Yeah, dude. We'll have to do one again soon.
Yes, sir. We
Sick.
have plenty we can talk about.